Dear listeners, welcome to another episode of Seeds of Tomorrow, a CPVO podcast. Today we have with us on the studio Francesco Mattina, the president of the CPVO. Good morning, Francesco.
Good morning.
And our remote guest is Niels Louwaars from Plantum. Good morning, Niels.
Good morning.
We traveled far away and now we are in the Netherlands. And I would like to start this episode. Niels, can you tell us about your role, about what Plantum is, what Plantum does?
Okay. Welcome to the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, Plantum is the association of companies working on seeds and other planting materials. Meaning it's over 250 companies in this small country dealing with breeding, multiplication, trade of all kinds of seeds, from field crops and potato to vegetables and to a wide diversity of flowers that the Netherlands is famous for.
Mm-hmm. Niels, I have to ask you, how come a career in plant breeding?
Yeah, that's quite a question. I went to the agricultural university after secondary school. And actually, to be frank, two reasons to choose plant breeding. One is the studies. One, because it was actually the most complex one compared to agronomy. At least I thought at that time that genetics was a lot of difficult subjects. And the other reason is that plant breeding is very powerful. In the 70s, there was the first global food conference, I think in 73 or 74. So when I started university in 75, I thought plant breeding is a subject where we can really contribute to the world. So it's also always that mixture of, at least for me, of scientific interest and also a meaningful subject.
But also a challenge. You deliberately choose the most difficult path.
Hey, that's me.
I would like to ask you. You said you were very, let's say, interested in the complexity of plant breeding. I'm an intellectual property lawyer by training. And how do you combine, or how do you see the combination of the complexities that you have in both fields? Because on one side, you have plant breeding technologies, challenges, etc. And on the other side, you have IP rights and different systems of intellectual property. What is your take on this?
Well, my take on that is I've been digging into history quite a bit lately, because we are hosting the centennial conference of the International Seed Federation in this country, and digging into history of why patents or trademarks or other existing IP rights before the Second World War were kind of discarded as options, and that we needed an IP system that recognizes the biological nature of plant breeding, and a system that recognizes the particular socio-economic reality of agriculture and horticulture, which indeed led to the development of a separate IP right system, plant breeders' rights, plant variety protection. So I think at that time it was a logical move, and this time that hasn't changed. We are still working with biology, the complexities of biology, which does require specific definitions in law that are more difficult to, or actually I think even impossible to formulate in other IP rights.
And Niels, if I can continue on this, I know you are an expert also on seed policies, and you worked a lot in your career in third countries, for example, in Africa, in Asia. What is the challenge there when you when you look at the development of an effective seed policy?
Seeds, and that's why also that's another reason, maybe for academic reasons, I was interested in the complexities of plant breeding. But when I got into the next step after plant breeding, and that is seeds, how do we get good seeds? Do we get better varieties, a better choice to farmers? That's also an enormously complex question, notably in countries in the global south. So when you talk about seed policies in, let's say, in most of Africa or most of Asia, you have to also there work with the realities. And the reality is that the what we call the formal seed system that we know here in Europe is not able at the moment and not for the next few decades able to cover all the needs of farmers for all the crops, which means that in a seed policy, you have to give specific room for the commercial sector, the public sector, but also the farmers' seed production operations, the informal sector, as it is often called. And that creates challenges on how to give space to these different seed systems in a particular country. Say a farmer in Africa, he or she very often will buy vegetable seeds from an international company there in a small packet or a tin. At the same time, the same farmer will get maize seed from a local company, will get sorghum seed from their neighbors, and will cut some cuttings of cassava from their own plot. So even one farmer uses different seed systems. And at a national level, you have to create space for these different seed systems to operate and to make sure that the quality of seed that farmers use is as good as possible.
So there is no one fit all seed policies depending on the country, depending on the local context, the trade context, and also the necessity to incentivize innovation by intellectual property rights.
I think you can say there could be a single frame for different countries, but within that frame has to provide for different solutions for different seed systems. That's my view on this question. So maybe to illustrate, I really feel that plant breeders' rights is very relevant for countries in the global south, for their commercial farmers and for their commercial formal seed systems. On the other hand, plant breeders' rights should not come into the way of subsistence farmers exchanging some seed locally with their neighbors, other subsistence farmers, and they may not even know. They may not even be able to know whether the seed that they have multiplied already for some time may be a protected variety. So the plant breeders' rights have to operate on the commercial sectors, like flowers in Kenya, or like other commercial crops in that country. At the same time, it should not come into the way of these local subsistence crops among subsistence farmers.
Yes, thank you. You took us around the world. Now, closer to home, if I may say so. I think I stopped you, but you were explaining to us what Plantum is and what are the primary objectives. How do you see your organization contributing in the field of plant breeding and agriculture?
Well, the Netherlands is the largest exporter in terms of money of seeds and planting materials in the world. Last year, it was some 4 billion euros. All comes from a lot of knowledge that is centered here in this country. Of course, we are not unique, but yes, we are very big in plant breeding, also in the number of plant breeders' rights applications at CPVO. Partly that is because horticulture is so strong in our small country that we need to get as much income for farmers from small plots of land, because in this country land is very expensive. So yes, floriculture and vegetable growing are very developed here. And that means that floriculture breeding and vegetable breeding and also soft fruit breeding are very, very advanced in this country. In the field crops, it is mainly potato, not so much the big crops like cereals and sugar beets and that kind of things. We are not good at that. So that diversity of crops means diversity of plant breeding, means a lot of different varieties coming onto the market every year. And those varieties, they go all over Europe, all over the world. And they're, I'm very proud of our sector, because all these new varieties, they are about making agriculture more sustainable with new resistances to diseases, tolerances against drought and salt and whatever you can think of. On the one hand, on the other hand, it is product qualities. I remember that, I'm not sure whether you know, but some 20, 30 years ago, tomatoes from the Netherlands were, yeah, sorry, that is German, Wasserbomben, and they were called bombs of water. They were all the same size, they were all red, and they were full of water and not much taste. And if you go to the supermarket in this country or other places in Europe, there's a wide diversity of larger, smaller, tasty, uh, all kinds of tomatoes. And that is all because of plant breeding. And I'm very proud of that, because those water bombs, no, they were not my favorite.
Niels, and well, water bomb aside, um, what is the collaboration between Plantum and CPVO? Can you explain us a bit how this unfold?
Yeah. For us, as I explained, with the large number of new varieties coming out of these different breeding programs, CPVO is very, very important for us. And I'm also very glad that we are official observer in the CPVO Administrative Council, together with Euroseeds and Siopra. And already that CPVO has that observer status, I think is a very, very good sign that the administrative and legal issues, they have to be connected to the realities in plant breeding and in the companies. And I'm very happy to be able to bring that perspective. So that's a very important one. And beyond that, I think CPVO is very, as I said, receptive also in visiting companies, visiting the realities of plant breeding, receptive to not just the legal nitty-gritty, but also practice. And I'm very glad with that. The third one, but that's a very small one, we have a program here run by NAC Tuinbouw, what we call the Toolbox program, on extending this knowledge on plant breeders' rights to third countries.
Niels, before we go further, to our listeners, what is Naktambo?
Good question. NAC Tuinbouw is the authority here in the Netherlands doing the registration research for formal registration of new varieties, and they do the quality controls for all horticulture sectors. So Nactuinbouw is the institute doing the variety testing work in order to for the national authorities, but also for CPVO to test whether a new variety is indeed new, whether it's distinct from other varieties, and sufficiently uniform and stable to be granted to be eligible for a plant breeder's rights. So that institute has a lot of knowledge about, of course, the legal aspect, but particularly also the practical aspects of the operation of a plant breeder's rights system. And Dutch government has asked Nactuinbouw to make that knowledge available for third countries. And in doing that, so every year there's a call for small projects in countries all over the world, selecting those projects and proposing such projects, CPVO and also UPOV in Geneva, the Global Plant Breeders' Rights organization, they have a voice. So we work together as Dutch parties and CPVO and UPOV to select the most relevant projects that they can work on. So that's a very, very practical connection that we have with CPVO as well.
What is the last project you are running? You are supervising, may I say so?
Oh, there's a whole list, and I'm not sure whether Francesco has the whole list in his head, but it runs from Kazakhstan to Tanzania to
Indonesia, Thailand, Latin America. It's really everywhere. There is room for improvement and harmonization, basically. And I'd like to echo what Niels was saying. Official observership status in the Administrative Council of the CPVO, it's crucial, it's important. Well, obvious because of the investment, the dimension of the investment in plant breeding in the Netherlands on behalf of the sector, because it brings closer the breeders to the work of the CPVO in terms of transparency. There is also a lot of collaboration in establishing, also through the national authorities, as Niels was mentioning, Nactuinbouw, to improve the efficiencies and effectiveness of DUS, distinctness, uniformity, and stability practices in the fields. So it's very pragmatic, as the Dutch are very pragmatic. I like it. And this is possible thanks to the close interaction also between the national authorities and the sector. So Plantum is very important in that respect. And indeed, the Dutch PVR toolbox, it's a platform, it's an international platform to develop cooperation projects that we run and that we collaborate in order to make also these projects coherent with European Union funded projects. So with this pragmatic approach, we can reach better results and broaden our horizon, actually.
So, in while doing capacity building in other part of the world, you of course collect knowledge and wisdom. From your standpoint, what are the current challenges and opportunities in the seed sector from where you stand?
whoa, that's a lot. The challenges and the opportunities. Let's start with all the challenges and opportunities of farming itself in these days, with where, of course, nature is playing tricks, call it climate change, where the society has very strong views on farming, particularly in the reduction of chemical crop protection. And in all those issues, we are part of the solution. Plant breeding is part of the solution by making crops more resilient to both the climatic changes and also the biotic, the diseases and pests. When you can resolve a problem in the seed, in the genetics, you don't have to have solutions in the field by irrigation or spraying or whatever. So, in fact, many challenges in farming are opportunities for breeding. Well, there are also challenges for breeding because it's not always easy to bring all those solutions into one seed. But in the end, it is the opportunity of the seed sector. We have to continue to breed better varieties. We are never ready because the world is changing so much. Of course, there are challenges of the sector, if I may continue, and that relate indeed also to producing guaranteed high quality planting materials. And it relates to more quickly come up with a solution. So at this very moment, there's a lot of discussion in Europe about new genomic techniques, which is very important. There's a lot of discussions about the new seed law, the organization of seed laws in Europe, the PRM that is called. And all the companies are really looking very cautiously at these developments. Will they affect breeding? Will they affect seed production and trade? In that last respect, of course, also phytosanitary, so plant health issues are increasingly complex globally. So there are quite some challenges, and that is, you could almost say, the bread and butter of an association like ours. If there would not be any problems to be solved,
Life will be boring.
life would be boring. Exactly. So there are plenty of challenges, but also I'm really happy to be able to say that we are also part of the solution to a range of societal challenges that comes down with the need to develop new varieties, which indeed directly relates to the importance of plant breeders' rights at the European level.
Would you say, Niels, while listening to you, the success of a variety depends on the recipe? It's like a cocktail. If you select and choose the right ingredients, you will have a great cocktail that will be appealing, yeah, the large part of the public. Is that part of the challenge and at the same time the opportunities you are?
Oh, definitely. By the way, in a healthy world, we talk more about mocktails, aren't we? But yes, a plant variety, you can consider it a cocktail because it's not one particular trait that determines a variety. A variety is determined by the combination of all kinds of traits that are important for farmers, for processors, for consumers, etc. And that defines a variety. It's not a Lego thing where you can simply put all the right colors in the right shape, etc., just like that. No, biology is more complex than that.
When you mentioned Lego, I thought of crisps. They often depict this technology as Lego doing. Are they wrong?
I think they are wrong. Yes, you can add a new block of Lego into an existing good variety. Yes, and that is, say, like CRISPR-Cas, it works like that you are focusing on improving one particular character. But in the end, that character has to be embedded in a whole complex plant with many, many different traits. And I don't believe that, well, in my lifetime or my kids' lifetime that we will be able to build up a plant from scratch at the DNA level with only the components. So the idea that it might be Lego blocks, I still think biology is too complex to go that way.
And if biology is complex, also the adaptation of intellectual property right system is critical, right, in this conversation nowadays with the new genomic technique and the evolution of, I would say, classical UPOF concepts.
And that's why UPOV, even though the basics remain extremely important, we have to continue to watch out to make sure that maybe not the basic law, but at least the way that UPOV is applied or the plant breeders' rights is implied is modernized sufficiently to cope with the technological developments. And that's indeed, it's not always easy because in 1961, when UPOV started, plant breeding was a different thing. When I studied plant breeding in 70s, early 80s, plant breeding was genetics, plant science, and a lot of mathematical statistics. When I went to live in the tropics for 10 years and I came back, the whole of molecular biology was coming into to plant breeding. And of course, now, next to molecular biology, also data sciences are coming into plant breeding. So, yes, the whole science and art of plant breeding is changing. That means that also the types of varieties are evolving. And that means that we have to continue to think about how to organize the legal protection systems.
And Niels, since you are very active also in teaching, um, do you think there is still an appeal for becoming plant breeders in the future? Will we have good breeders in Europe in the next, let's say, 10 years? Because also the job market is changing as a consequence of technology, innovation, artificial intelligence, etc. So, do you have any feeling on that?
I think we have two opportunities rather than challenges. I think for youth at this moment to have a meaningful, to choose for a meaningful line of career um, is still the same as with me in the 70s. There are two ways. Will students want to be plant breeders? I think so, even though many who start to study plant breeding move more to the molecular levels. But still, there will be agronomists who choose to become practical plant breeders. So that I don't fear for a lack of plant breeders. On the other hand, the next challenge is to get enough people from other sciences into plant breeding. We need the data scientists. We need the AI scientists to get interest into working with biologists like us. And that is also a challenge because those guys can work anywhere in all kind of different sectors, and we need them. So we are competing with other sectors there. I mean, here in the Netherlands, we have, I don't know whether you know it, ASML. That's this company making chips, machines that make chips, computer chips. I mean, that's really highbrow technology. And yes, they are pulling away quite a lot of brains towards themselves. Luckily, we get in our technical university, doing a lot of data sciences. We are working with those education levels uh, to be able to show students how fun, how international, how relevant it is to use their brains into our sector. Um, but I do see, Francesco, talking about also numbers, that we at this moment in the Netherlands, we have quite a lot of, we call it knowledge immigrants. So really highly educated people from other parts of Europe and also outside Europe, whom we need here in this country in the breeding sector. And that shows how advanced and how exciting the sector is. But knowing that immigration is a bit of a political issue in Europe, that's a challenge also for companies to get enough brains in competition with other countries and with other fields.
Niels, so let's say that we can travel back in time, and I'm considering entering this field. What advice would you give me in a nutshell? I'm the young Alessio considering this field.
I think you have a very mature voice, but yes, you as a youngster, if you want to contribute to food, to sustainability, to really the basics of in this world, in a scientifically exciting way, hey, come to the sector. This is where you want to be.
We faced this decrease in application last year, and we saw the data, and Netherlands as well have dropped a bit. Do you think that the mechanism that has been put in operation by the Commission, the SME Found 2024, is going to help or entice companies in applying for protection?
There are different things. One is the number of varieties that they push out, that they want to push out. The second question is whether to protect or not. There is no obligation to protect.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all individual decisions by individual companies that have to do with all kind of factors, including cost. And that means that if they can choose between protecting at national level, at European level, or not protecting at all because they think the variety will have a commercial life of only maybe 2 or 3 years. Um, all those aspects determine whether they want protection at the European level.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I know it's a dilemma that, of course, the CPVO or a national organization, they have to cover their costs. And we want those organizations to have the highest level of services and knowledge, etc. But there are limits, of course, to the cost that you can charge to breeders, especially of crops with a very small market. It makes quite a difference whether you have a new chrysanthemum or whether you have, say, some, well, I can't even know what kind of small flower that with a very small market, and charging the same amount will be a disincentive for that smaller breeder with a small crop. I'm not saying that you should make big differences in charges, etc. That's the administrative thing, but of course you are part of the market decisions that breeders make.
And then for sure, yeah.
And by the way, I think, but I think that it was last year, it was a dip. And what we see is we think that the number is increasing again. What exactly the reason is, whether that still has to do with COVID or with particularly the developments in the ornamental sector, because that's the largest number of new varieties coming out, and the ornamental sector is not doing very well at the moment. It may catch up again soon.
Okay, and Niels, we tried our best to support with this funding and increasing the amount of the fund. If you compare it with the 2023 edition, indeed, I can also witness to you that we have received many more applications in the first 2 months to use the SME fund.
No, honestly, I really supported when that fund was created, particularly also because it supports breeders that push out few varieties more than the larger ones. And in general, the diversity of plant breeding is an asset in Europe and in the Netherlands, of course.
And this concludes our episode today. A big thank you to our guests and to our listeners. Keep following us on the socials to stay updated on the latest episodes. This is Alessio De Laurentiis signing off. The music you're listening to is from Jazzcopo, a Lombardi and Amoruso production.